Shawn A-in-chut Atleo. I join all of you in acknowledging that this gathering is taking place in unceded Algonquin territories, recognizing the drum, the elders, the veterans, all of the youth, regional chiefs, executive chiefs, grand chiefs. Let me just begin by thanking each one of you for being here and also for your support. We're often faced with multiple and urgent demands, and this certainly is one such occasion. It means we need to rely on one another, and I'm so thankful for the full support of the National Executive and the leadership of all of you. I look forward to rejoining the Assembly as soon as may be possible. Wherever I am, whether in any one of our communities or in other Indigenous territories internationally, I'm reminded of our roles and responsibilities, which is first to our people in our communities, to the children, to the elders, mothers and fathers. As you know, we lost an incredible, courageous, and inspirational Indigenous hero last week, Madiba, as he was known to his peoples. As I discussed with the National Executive and many of you, the connection to all Indigenous people is critical. And it's important to pay our deepest respects to a man that not only lifted the oppressive chains of apartheid from his people, but also helped the nation come together with their painful past and find a place of reconciliation. Indeed, he showed the world not only why reconciliation was essential, but how it can be achieved. Just as apartheid was linked to the Indian Act, so too can we now look to Mandela's vision to be our guide for reconciliation. Reconciliation involves truth and the work that the Truth and Reconciliation Commission is now doing, but it also demands real change to laws, to policies, and structures in full dialogue with our peoples. Madiba shows us that change isn't just a vision or a dream. We can be that change. I've also received some powerful reminders of our responsibilities just over the past 2 weeks when I've been traveling to communities in Northern Ontario and Northern Manitoba. Being in Pikangikum First Nation in Northern Ontario just 2 weeks ago. Despite incredible challenges, the people are drawing on all their resources to create a better, stronger, healthier community for all. Led by the elders, they created the White Feather Forest Initiative to ensure that natural resources are used responsibly in a responsible and sustainable way, in a way that benefits the whole community. But like so many of our communities, too many, there's still so much work to do. I met with the children, toured the local school, and learned that 50 children could not be accommodated on their first day of kindergarten this year because there was not enough room. These are little boys and girls who are looking forward to their very first day at school, but it's taken away from them because they do not get the same support as other school children across Canada. Children with hope in their eyes, asking only for a fair chance to go to school. And I wonder, how long can they hold on to hope? Just last week, I traveled to 5 remote communities with Grand Chief Harper and Santa Claus. We delivered presents to more than 2,000 First Nations children. Can't forget that these children in the north can't go to the mall in the city to see Santa so easily, so we brought Santa to them. And despite the freezing cold temperatures, hundreds and hundreds of children greeted us with the warmest smiles and looks of excitement on their faces. My travels are a powerful reminder that we must never forget the real enemy. That's the status quo. Our fight, our struggle, our aim is change, and our goal is rebuilding our nations. As I constantly remind others, the real story is that Canada is more than a country with 2 founding nations and far more than a country of immigrants. These are all myths that attempt to deny our reality. In the same way, we are far more than 633 Indian bands and reserves. We are the original nations of this land. We have over 50 languages, and we're part of over 80 Indigenous nations with our own languages, our songs, spirituality, political systems, and our laws. And we need and we will tear down colonialism and rebuild our nations, reinvigorate our governments, and re-energize our citizens. We will resist and fight damaging policies and damaging laws that threaten our people, our rights, and our way of life. And real leadership means not only pushing back, but also pressing forward. We must lead the way, articulate our solutions, and drive the change that we want to see. That's the work that we're doing here. In every forum, across every area, we work to create space for each First Nation to pursue its own path forward. So this work very much is about trusting yourself, your people, trusting your ideas and your ability to give life to your vision of better, stronger, healthier nations. And only you can provide this for your nations and communities. As the National Chief, and the regional chiefs as well. Our work is not about negotiating on your behalf or looking for trust. It's about us, about your executive, supporting and trusting you in your work, on your path forward, on your resurgence and rebuilding of your nations. There are always reasons to say no. We can always criticize any new approach or initiative, whether it's by the government or by us. We need to go further. That's only half the job. When we see bad laws or bad policies coming at us, we will stand firm. We will resist and we will win. But when we win those battles, we've only won the status quo. We need victories on the ground for our people. Victories that advance our agenda and move us ahead. Victories where we can clearly see ourselves, our teachings, our solutions reflected back to us. I don't believe in fighting to simply keep things the way they are. And I don't think any of you believe in fighting to keep things the way they are either. And that's why I don't believe in fighting with each other. Division allows governments to ignore us. The elders remind us that the colonizer loves nothing more than when we fight amongst ourselves. And while I know there's much interest and intrigue around the 2015 leadership contest, both for our organization and for the federal government leadership, I want to make this point very clear. This is not about contests. It's not about politics. This is about our children. This is about the kids. When I first started attending these meetings as a young man in BC, out on the West Coast, there was discord and there was division. And we had to work hard to break decades worth of disconnect and division, to come to the understanding that while respecting our tremendous diversity, we are absolutely stronger together. This doesn't mean that we march in lockstep and support every single plan or approach, a singular plan. We seize the moment and move forward towards our ultimate destination, a new era where our people are healthy and educated, our languages and cultures are strong and thriving, and our nations and our laws and our treaties and rights are active and alive. And our children are safe. Their eyes and their spirits are filled with hope and opportunity. The responsibility of real leadership compels us to put our plans forward and to act on our plans. Too often, we react out of fear when we should be acting for change with courage and with confidence. We can learn from the late Nelson Mandela that, as he said, courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. I don't believe in waiting for the white horse of government to ride in and rescue us. Those little kids in Pekanjicum, they can't wait. Our young people on the east side of Vancouver can't wait. Our young people out there defending their lands in Grassy Narrows, Elsipogtog, or any of our communities, our people will not wait. And we must remove every excuse for governments to not act. On education, for example, we've been very clear in our demands. We're calling for First Nations control of First Nations education in systems that meaningfully recognize our languages and our cultures, supported by stable, sustainable, and fair funding. No one can claim that they don't know what it is that we want. We are absolute in our resolve to advance the clear recognition and affirmation of our inherent title through new policy that incinerates once and for all the myth of the doctrine of discovery. The Tsilhqot'in are taking this forward, and what an honor it was to welcome them in their historic journey to the Supreme Court, with our nations and your national organization intervening with some of the most important statements ever assembled. We're also pressing this directly with the government, and thanks to First Nations leadership and effort, we're making progress and continue to press ahead. Our work on treaties is based on clear calls for action by First Nations over many decades for a real approach to give life to our sacred agreements. And let me be clear, the AFN is not a signatory to any treaty. AFN is not a rights holder. So this is not about me or the regional chief sitting across the table to negotiate anyone's treaty. It is the treaty leaders and their people that must implement their treaties based on their approach and their priorities. And we will hear at this assembly directly from some of those who are pushing this work forward. And I commend them for their commitment, because we hear over and over, implement the treaties, honor the treaties. And we absolutely agree with that, and we must push further. We must articulate, each of you, based on your treaty, how you want to do that. We've created a forum for treaty rights holders to pursue their plans, and I fully support any other approaches or plans, with our overriding objective to be, let's get this work moving. Directly connected to the work on treaties, to our rights and title, is our traditional territories. We're in a moment where there is undeniable growing recognition and sometimes fear that First Nations are key players in the country's economy. The recent report by IFERD on First Nations and energy development, submitted to the Prime Minister provides recommendations all relating back to the recognition and reconciliation of treaty implementation and rights and title. And so we are at a critical juncture in our relationship with Canada. We've been very clear in all areas. We're not anti-development, but we're not development for development at just any cost. Any development must be responsible, must be sustainable, and we must be key partners. This coming Friday, I will be attending the United Nations meeting on sustainable development. Our people are standing up and speaking out, and Canada and the world must know Indigenous peoples of this land have a sacred duty and responsibility to care for the land and all living things. We didn't need Al Gore to tell us that climate change is real. Our people have known this for decades. I think about my late grandfather with me out on the fishing grounds on the Pacific telling me about the warming of the seas that he has seen over his lifetime. And we will have a say, based on our treaties and title and the principle of free, prior, and informed consent, as set out in the United Nations Declaration. And we'll tell Canada that this approach is not an option. It's a key condition. It's non-negotiable. It's the law of your land. This is real power, and it's a source of fear for governments and economic growth. But it can be and should be a move towards mutual benefits if we take the same approach as our ancestors took in the treaties, and we embrace sharing, respect, recognition, and partnership. These are the essential elements of engagement. It's the basis of our unity and our resolve to stand together for our rights and our title. And we are piercing the nation's consciousness and making governments, industry, and citizens realize that we are a force to be reckoned with. We will absolutely wake them up. I'm calling for us to stand together and move forward because we have the momentum. We're in a very real moment of transformation, and the youth are leading the way. I was inspired and energized by the vitality at our recent youth summit in Saskatoon. Young leaders like Savannah Simon from Elsipogtog speaking passionately about defending her lands. We know this is not simply about the narrow issue of fracking. It's about the clear right of First Nations to have a say in any activities that affect their lands, their waters, and traditional territories. These are not protesters. These are our protectors. Just a year ago today, we saw our youth mobilizing under the banner of Idle No More, with a wave of marches, rallies, and round dances washing over the country from coast to coast like a tide of change, saying, now is our time. And we are standing our ground, and we're fighting. The AFN, like you and your organizations, we will not be intimidated by funding cuts aimed at hobbling our organizations. We will continue to press our work forward and support your nations despite funding challenges. We will continue to support activities that do not get funded for because they are important to our people, like the AFN and the First Nations Child and Family Caring Society, continuing to pursue our human rights complaint against the federal government for the unfair and unjust treatment of First Nations children in care. Or standing with the Tsilhqot'in in their historic case at the Supreme Court of Canada, demanding recognition of First Nations title, wiping out the doctrine of discovery and the myth of terra nullius. Standing with our people in Elsipogtog and with others from coast to coast to coast, to travel to remote northern communities and across our regions to be with people in their communities. Our role as leaders is to push back when our rights are under attack and at the same time come forward to set out strategies that drive us ahead. We can reject existing federal laws, but we also must write our own. I see First Nations and regions doing this in areas like education, lands management, and governance. And politically, we must light the fires of nation building, walk the talk, and bring definition to the vision that we hold for our people and for our future. We want to reset the relationship back to its original foundation of mutual recognition, mutual respect, and partnership, and now is our time to do this. And the stakes are exceptionally high. We cannot and we will not waver. We must see words marked by concrete actions and maximum engagement, potential and opportunity for our peoples. We stand strongest when we stand together, and we will prevail. So let me end with just one final reflection. As I mentioned, I've had the chance to visit many Northern First Nations in recent weeks. I think about Pekanjikum, Sandy Lake, Norway House, Oxford House, Cross Lake, each community different, and each visit with a different purpose, and some the absolute joy of delivering Christmas presents with Santa. More often sitting and listening to chiefs and councils, to elders, and spending time with families, and especially those moments looking into the eyes of the kids. The struggles facing our families are sometimes too much to bear. I see the pain, and I feel the anger and the hurt. Seeing this, feeling this, and knowing this, the first instincts are anger and blame. That child doesn't need our anger. That child needs action. That child deserves justice. That child needs our love to feel safe, to feel cared for, and to know true hope and opportunity. We're reminded of our teachings of humility, of respect, and of responsibility. Let us constantly be reminded of our kids. This fall marked the 50th anniversary of Martin Luther King's famous speech in Washington, and his words echo still, also with reminders for us all. He recognized great suffering and brought injustices forward for the world to see. But rather than heaping blame, he called on something deeper. He called on humankind to address our challenges head on and to do it with compassion. As leaders today, we can find the same compassion. Compassion for the families who are struggling. Compassion to help the moms and dads be better parents. Compassion to help children make good choices. To guide leaders to do their very best for people. Compassion to drive forward on our terms, solutions with one another. Honorable relations with neighbors and with other governments. We are proud Indigenous nations with the dignity, with the honor, a responsibility of representing our ancestors, the original peoples of this land, living the very best of our teachings, of treaty, of who we are, and striving every day to achieve a better future for our kids. We cannot and will not forget about our young people. They need us right now. I look forward to seeing you all very soon as I return to the Assembly, having taken forward our respects to Madiba and the legacy and the vitality of the leadership and struggle against injustices the world over. May this serve to energize and inspire the true achievement and imperative of reconciliation for all our nations. True, Aona, Tleko, Tleko. Thank you.